You ever shaped your own surfboard, Rob?
I haven't, nope.
No, not me, but I kind of feel like I want to after that. Interesting discussion with Luke Young, really detailed. Believe it or not, it is apparently possible to know how one type of masking tape might bend in one way or another. Would you have ever thought of that kind of stuff?
I can't say I ever have, but having heard Luke describe it, I can picture what he's on about, certainly.
Amazing. With those shaper conversations, there is just so much you can sort of say about the art of surfboard manufacture. Wonderful stuff. So with no further ado for the listeners, here it is. It's Luke.
It's one of the least understood and most challenging skills within the surf world.
As true hand shaping becomes an increasingly rare process, we'll speak to one of the UK's genuine master craftsmen.
He might be one of the finest at hand making a board from start to finish, but that's not all. He's a hell of a surfer too. Welcome to Crest, Luke Young.
Yes, he's here with us. It's the South Coast shaping talisman, Luke Young. How's things?
I'm good. You all right, boys?
Good. Hey, Luke.
Yeah, man, I'm doing all right.
It's nice to see you. It's been a while. Now, I know you've suffered Tom's company a lot in the last few decades, so this is more for the listeners than for the guest. But as is custom, let me start off with the necessary introductions to the Crest team. To my left, the founder of the online Welsh language evening course, Dysgu Dusk. The intensive Welsh language course promised to teach you Welsh in 61 days, with lessons taking place each day at twilight. However, his dreams of a linguistical livelihood were dashed when the new kids on the block learned Welsh in 60 days and to cut in by 24 hours. It's Tom Anderson. How are you, Tom?
I'm all right, yeah. Thanks for that. I've been trying to keep that one a secret. And to my right, well, you may have heard of the best-selling book and later Hollywood blockbuster starring Ewan McGregor, Trout Fishing in the Yemen. Well, did you know that the whole concept was, in fact, shamelessly purloined from an original harebrained escapade in our very own southeast Wales's Newport Basin? Well, it's true, and to this day much under-publicised, since the place does, after all, have a set of litter-garnished Roman ruins to bring in the tourists instead. Anyway, for those still interested, the ambitious but ultimately failed project, Stickleback Netting in the Iska, was, of course, the thought child of none other than the dream medium entrepreneur who now joins us in the virtual studio. It's Robert Webster Blythe.
It's long-winded.
It did come out longer than I planned, didn't it? Yeah.
A few points to make again, as always. We do get the odd trout at the Usk rather than the Iska, but we're actually more known for our salmon.
And when was the last time you went down the Roman ruins?
I took a school trip down there last year. Yeah, it was flooded though. The amphitheatre was flooded, unfortunately.
I put the Roman ruins in there for Luke because, as we're going to learn later in the show, he's a big fan of the Goldie Lookin Chain.
My sister, you'll be pleased to know, Luke, my sister was in school with two of them.
Really?
Yes.
Which ones?
What's his name?
It don't matter. That's just a good story.
The
maggot?
No. The one with the longer hair and the glasses and the two headbands.
Oh, two hats.
Two hats.
No, two hats. Two hats is from the wrong side of the tracks.
I see. I'll explain to you, Luke. We do this little intro thing, me and Rob do, where we try and sort of, have a little skit about each other. And then what we're doing now is we're asking the guest to decide who the winner was. Now, last week, Harry Cromwell sat on the fence, but we're hoping you might show a bit of cojones this week. So who was best out of us?
Well, it depends what attributes we're looking at, isn't it? To get all what you come out with in one lungful, it's got to be that's pretty good. But Rob's is just like the other podcasts you've done. Rob's is clean, to the point, smart, sophisticated, intelligent. I'm going with Rob.
Thank you very much. I felt that I switched off after two Toms.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking at the other side of the sun.
All right. Move on then.
Sorry, Tom. Sorry, mate.
We've done a more traditional one for you, Luke.
Oh, yeah.
In welcoming Luke to our podcast today, we're anticipating a revealing discussion of the mysterious world of the shaping bay. With 2 decades of experience and some 10,000 boards to his name, Luke is one of the UK's top talents with the planer, a genuine jack of all trades in surfboard making. Luke has also been known to adeptly glass, spray, laminate, any stage of the process if need be. In fact, some of the artwork on Luke's boards has turned heads all the way from the car park to the shoreline, and when the boards project out of the lip line. Based in Plymouth, Luke's journey into surfing and shaping is a tale of dedication and, above all, stoke.
Yeah, as he often reminds me, especially when he catches me supporting England's opponents in team sporting events, he and I share a Hertfordshire as a birthplace. After moving to the south coast, though, in his late teens, Luke began shaping almost immediately, fostering a homegrown surfboard making enterprise which still specialises in a daily output of custom boards. It's a journey that has afforded him the chance to brush with many of the sport's most interesting figures, both famous and underground. As a surfer, Luke is, like our previous guests, usually recognisable by his infectious energy in the lineup. An appetite for the heavier stuff has also seen him develop quite a taste for risk and adrenaline, matched also on both the mountain and the skate ramp. And he is even an armchair fan of motocross.
Nah, that's Speedway.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Sorry, that was fighting talk, wasn't it? His shaping and surfing lives, and I should know because I've actually been to watch it with you in a stadium, haven't I? His shaping and surfing lives have taken in a range of countries and experiences, many of which we're looking forward to hearing about in the coming hour or so. So yes, let me say it again. Thanks for coming on the show, Lou.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, all good.
I know someone that used to race Speedway.
Do you?
Yeah, lived
for
fast.
Newport Wasp?
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Still, I mean, I was about to say he lived fast, died young, but he's still alive.
What's his name?
He's quite old now. I don't know. I just know his nickname is Chubb.
Oh, okay. All right.
He's a Sparky.
Oh, is he?
Anywho, so moving from the south coast, from landlocked Hertfordshire, with an interest in action sports, it's pretty normal to pick up a surf habit, but shaping and going on to make more than just a few hobby boards, starting a business straight off. How does someone in their early 20s decide to take that path? How did you get into it, Luke?
It's much the same as I've read a couple of things by other people older than me doing my job, and it's almost like a blueprint. Everyone said the same thing. You were young. I had a paper round, and I think I was on a good week I might earn £12 a week. And you go down the beach as that youngster, and you'd see people in the water, and you had to do it. You had to have it. But then the money comes into it. Then when you're that age, how much a surfboards cost, you're like, it's just sort of out your grasp, or it's not out your grasp. To save it all up is it takes a long time. So and just being being sort of better. That's how it is, better with my hands than my concentration. It was, I think it was my mum said, like, well, we just make one. And I remember sort of thinking, like, you can't do that. What are you on about? And it's much the same as, like I said, other shapers as well. Like you just get on in there, and emails and phone calls I get from like young people who want to get into it, which I've got to say has dwindled a lot in the last couple of years. But when you get these phone calls and I say it to them, you've just got to get in there. You've got to get on in there. You've got to get yourself dusty. Like with everything else, you've got to get it wrong lots of times to get it right. And I just, obviously, I didn't know as such in my head consciously, but subconsciously, I obviously did really, really, really want to do it because I kept doing it and I kept doing it and I kept doing it. And then after a while, they're just horrible for a very, very long time because you don't know what you're looking for. You don't.
You just had to persuade people to buy them.
It was just mostly me and my brother, really, because there was no persuading someone who knew what they wanted out of a board, who knew what they wanted it to look like, and so forth. There is kind of no persuading them, really. So it was a case of just me, sort of my brother riding them, and then just getting on with it. And then at the stage when I use the term loosely, had kind of got it, what I was really looking for, I started working in a surf shop. And every day I was in the hardware department, like wetsuits and boards and bits and bobs. And every day I was staring at boards. Every day I was staring at boards shaped by, again, some of the world's best shapers. And that subconscious is obviously kicking in, and the photographic memory thing and so forth. So when I did leave work and I did go back home and I had the blank there, I could go, oh yeah, when I'd left for work that morning, that board looked great, fine, no dramas at all. Then I'd gone to work and seen how a nose should really, really look. And then I went back in the evening and you're like, no, the nose isn't right, it's too thick or something like that,
So,
and it's literally just repetition. There is no other way than repetition.
So I guess it started out of necessity then.
Yeah.
Shaping for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I knew what I wanted under my feet, but I said on the paper round, it's quite hard to get that. And I loved it. I really, once I'd gotten covered in dust, I thought, I like it.
It's nice to hear some another paper round anecdote linked with surfing. I had a paper round, and I lost my job as a result of going surfing. I went to Cornwall for a week, May half term, when I was pretty young at the time, and I left my paper round to a friend of mine to carry on whilst I was away. But he gave up after 2 days and didn't inform the newsagent.
No.
And alas, I lost my paper round.
We've all made that mistake. I asked Tristan Davis to deliver the Seaside News for me once so I could go surfing, and he threw them all in the bin.
Yeah, my wife used to put them in like municipal bins and under her bed. And then mother-in-law, I wasn't married to her then. Mother-in-law found them like stacks and stacks of them underneath her bed and the younger brother's bed, and she was kind of found out, and goodbye job. So
let's bring it back to surfing. You mentioned being covered in dust and changing the shape on a whim. So talk us through the process. How do you go about making a board from scratch?
Right. Depends which way you look at it. Back along then, when there was no shaping machines, it was work out what dimensions you want, select your blank, then with your planer. And at the time, the first planer I had was it was a Black & Decker from the Index catalogue shop. On the front, because I'd seen pictures of shapers in shaping rooms with the handle on the front. I glued a wooden door handle on the front, so at least I had. Well, initially it was because I wanted it to look good, but then when I did it, it felt it balanced. You could actually move it around. Much easier. It wasn't like you weren't sort of just holding the back of it. No. Then you just trim that blank down pretty much to almost the thickness you're looking for. Smooth it all out a little bit, sand it off a bit, make it a bit smoother. Cut your template out with your saw. Then sort of bend your deck into your rail and then kick your tail up a little, bring your nose up or bring your nose down, depending on the rock you need and so forth. And just refine it, and then then you go from your planer, you go into sort of like a surf form and hand tools, and the further you go down, you go from like gnarly sort of electric tools to little sort of hand tools.
So you end up more refined as you
absolutely. And then you're finishing off with a gauze, which is like like a metal gauze, and you just to make it.
It's interesting what you said at the beginning of that little passage. Then you said, well, back then we did it before machines. Now with the involvement of machines, how does it look?
Do you know what? This is an area where I could spend however long anybody wanted me to spend with somebody, chatting it over. And arguing is the wrong word, because it is how it is. But the machines, they're just a massive grade. They do not shape a whole surfboard for you. Right, let's just get that straight. They should be called a profiling machine. They pretty much do most of the donkey work, right? So the running up and down with the planer, all the stuff which you do at the start is pretty much done by the machine, and obviously a lot more refined. The first machine I started using, called the DSD, that doesn't cut the bottom rail. So you've got the deck rolled down into the rail, but then that rail stopped halfway down the blank there. So you had a hard square edge, which, as far as I was concerned, is great, because I want to put that bottom in. That's that's hallowed ground. That area there, especially where it leads into where your fin cluster and all, that has to have attention put on it.
What's the bit of the board that's always in the way?
Exactly. So that was all good. It's fine. And even to this day now, I mean, I do most of my work with the shaping machine now because I have so much to do. And just as the way surfboards and the industry has gone along, you use models now. You have a model that does this, there's a model that does that, and and it's easier. It's much easier for the surfer who isn't a shaper and stuff to be able to sit, read. This model does this. This model is this size, that, this literage, all that. So it takes away a lot of the donkey work, and it leaves that craftsman still the time in that shaping room to do the bit that really, really counts. Like I said, the machine I'm using now, or the two machines I'm using now, they are capable of doing that bottom rail, but I still don't have the bottom rails cut. That's how it is. But the machine is a great help. A great help.
So I could kind of add to I don't know if I'm adding to it or further in the debate here. I was doing my research ahead of talking to you, and I found this from Bo Young, a picture on Instagram of a bunch of offcuts. And he says here, pics from the bay, outline offcuts. For me, hand shaping from a block of foam will always be a challenge, like learning any art or craft. If you're making boards and have not had a lot of these outline pieces floating around, you are not a shaper, in my opinion. Call me old school, but if you can't hand shape all your models, you are simply a designer. And then he goes on to say, you must probably be aware of this, I want to thank all these legends in the game for their tips and help along the journey. And then writes a little list of shapers, including Neil Purchase Jr. On the Gold Coast, Donald Takayama, and he tags you in it, Luke Young Surfboards.
Cool. Thanks, bro.
So Bo Young is he's a bit of a legend, isn't he?
He's a good bloke. Really good bloke. Yeah.
And I suppose that does sort of make me think a little bit of this mantra that you've said in the past. That good boards ain't cheap, cheap boards ain't good.
Yeah.
That's a manufacturing philosophy, and I suppose the hand shaping thing comes in there as well. Then, doesn't it?
It all. That argument stroke conversation will change from group of people to group of people from group of people. Things in technology as a rule move forward. But I think what Bo said in there about being able to shape all of your models, I mean, that's something I'm very proud to say, it's not a problem to me. It isn't a problem whatsoever. It's great because it goes back to where I started from. I'm reminded of what it takes to shape a surfboard. Rather than just design one. But at the end of the day, when it does come to the machine, if you're then in a different situation and people are going, them machines, they do it all for you. They do a great deal of it for you, but you've got to design it. You don't just sort of say to a machine, shape me a surfboard, and it does it. Somebody has to sit there and design that board, and then put that design into that machine. You know what I mean? So it still takes somebody who knows kind of what they're looking for and what they're wanting to do that. I wouldn't say it's a lost art, as it were. Lots of people are still mowing, as we call it, with a planer. And I will always mow with a planer.
We've discussed briefly, in the grand scheme of things, the impact that the shaping machine has had on, or the what did you call it? Not the shaping machine, what was your word for it back then?
The profiling
machine. The profiling machine has had on shaping. But how about materials? How have materials changed in recent years? Of course, Clark foam, Gordon Grubby Clark went through 10 years or so ago. How has the surf industry reacted to that? And have you seen a shift perhaps towards more sustainable practices?
That Clark going pop actually opened the floodgates, to be honest. There was, I think, back along in the Clark days, you could really only there was Clark, you could get Burford, and there was dribbles of Surf Blanks and dribbles of Bennett, but it was that Clark was the main thing you would go and buy. You could get that was being brought over from America. But when Clark did close up, it did open it up, and a lot more different foams came in. Clark foam was very, very. Most PU foam is dual density. I sort of get softer into the middle. Clark did that quite considerably. They used to specify that you shape most of your board from the bottom of the blank. So the harder foam was on the top where the feet were going to go. But then other blanks came in that were, like just a little bit more solid, and the stringers were kind of nicer. And then you were like, wow, okay. But then nothing really changed in the way of sort of the eco thing for a very, very, very long time after that. There was, we used to have in Redruth, home blown. They were blowing foam down in Cornwall there, which was blown through water as opposed to TDIs. So the process was a lot better for the environment and everything. The foam was pretty good. You knew it was different to the TDI foam, but that was a step in the direction of getting it a more eco-friendly foam. But then they also did do a bio foam, and unfortunately it had that kind of moldy color to it, and the horrible, really, I guess, thing about surfing and surfers and stuff, like the surfboard's got to be pop white, it's just.
Would you spray them white?
You couldn't. It wouldn't. It just the amount of paint you'd have to put on it, you'd be putting so much weight on it, and then laminating it would be sort of slightly different, and that it never kind of really caught on, unfortunately. But then started the kind of the EPS epoxy thing again, sort of coming back into surfboards and surfing, and then that started to, up until I think the first mate of mine over in Ireland, Barry over there, was harping on to me about this Marco foam, this EPS that was made out of recycled polystyrene, and can you get some? I want my boards, because he's really, really, really conscious. And I did. As it happened, then I got a call from a guy in Bristol, and he was bringing a couple of containers in, and I managed to get my hands on it. And that bingo, there you go. And then along with that came a super sap resin made by Entropy Resins that was completely bio. So there you had this recycled blank, which was made by surfers for surfers. So it wasn't just polystyrene; it was actually a surfboard blank. It was like super fused. It was compressed. All the beads were compressed and so forth, rather than just being like virgin EPS, where all the beads are just kind of like loosely put together and they don't sort of tessellate. You had this proper blank, and then you're covering it in this super sap resin. This bio resin. And there you go, bingo. And at the time, it was 3 years ago, I think now, at Trestles, all the boys turned up at Trestles for the contest, and it was like 2 foot, and it was a weak 2 foot, but it was still clean. And they all had their normal boards built out of this Marco foam and super sap, and they were surfing in like knee waist height surf, as they would have done in sort of 4 to 6 foot surf on a PU board on these boards, and it lit up. Like, people were like, I want that. And as luck would have it, which I've got to say, a lot of my career and things like that, like luck, I'm not going to say it's all hard work. Luck has been on my side a lot as well. I had my hands on all this stuff as well.
And it's interesting that you say that. I saw a post by Joel Tudor a couple of weeks ago, and he'd dug out some Pat Rawson blanks belonging. I think Bird from Bird Surf Shed in San Diego had found them in the rafters somewhere. And right. He made this big fuss on Instagram that he found these blanks from the mid 90s.
Right.
And he was all stoked on it. But funnily enough, legend of Welsh surf, John Abraham, was around my house yesterday taking a template off my longboard, because again, he in his rafters had found 2 Clark foam blanks.
No, wow, really?
Yeah, about 15 years old, and he was just having a clear out in his garage and found these 2 boards, because he shapes from time to time.
Yeah.
And I said it's probably worth him selling the blanks and buying himself a decent board rather than.
Yeah. I did see someone selling a Clark blank. I don't know what it was on, but I did see someone had found a Clark blank.
They certainly sell it inflated prices at the minute, don't they? Mm-hmm. They're still in demand after all these years.
Yeah, totally. Because it's now a historic artifact of surfing, isn't it? A surfing folklore and everything. Yeah, for sure. No, definitely. I did actually see, you mentioned Pat Rawson. I did actually see on his Instagram or his Facebook the other day, one of those blanks on his stands, and he said, I'm really excited to get into this blanks.
I think that's the second part of the story. I think Joel had passed them on to him.
There you go. Right, okay.
We're actually going to talk about Pat Rawson later, because we have a bit of a closer link to explore, I think. However,
you guys are talking about these almost like it's finding like a bottle of champagne that you'd forgotten about downstairs in the cellar, and you're going to bring it out for a special occasion.
It's so funny you say that. It's Elliot Dudley's birthday today, and I went for a socially distanced beer with him earlier, and I told him about John finding these Clark phone blanks, and he made the exact analogy. He said it's like finding a fine wine in the cellar after all these years.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. But let's bring it back to shaping, Luke. Aside from shaping and glassing and laminating, you've also turned your hand to board art in the past, haven't you? And
had to.
Yeah, I mean, I've done the odd little paint job on my boards, and they always turn out horrifically. Largely, I put it down to not spending the time to mask the board out properly and sand it back and lacquer it afterwards. It's painstaking, isn't it, to get it done properly?
It is. But again, it's repetition. You know, the more you do it, the more you know the process, and it isn't as painstaking. Some spray jobs are really painstaking. They really, really are. But some of them, you know, to get a real good looking board doesn't really take that long. And it's the hand to eye coordination. And again, it's just repetition. You do it over and over and over again, and you become. It's a really weird thing to say, but you know that which different masking tapes will bend at a certain speed that you pull it along a board.
I get that.
You know, and they'll bend one way and they won't bend the other. They'll crease one. I mean, this is real sort of geeky sort of stuff. But no one's ever going to think, well, I've never thought about bending masking tape before. No. But it does. You know, because surfboards are
bent
stuff. You know, but
Sorry, my most successful board art declared in very large font on the bottom underside of my board that Nigel Farage is a willy head.
No, yeah.
It was aired. It was aired on ISA TV.
Was it?
The world. Yeah.
Well, at least it wasn't wasted then.
It was top
on the bottom. Yeah. Did you get any replies, any retort from Nigel? No.
There are a few names in British surfing that had things to say, but we soon defriended them. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Nige don't surf.
I'm pretty sure Nige don't surf. Yeah, I'll go along with that.
Did you see that you're saying about trestles? You know, it takes some of the top surfers to use something sometimes for it to catch on. I have heard it suggested before that one thing the WSL could do, like they do in motor racing, is the WSL could start to impose stipulations like, you know, your boards have got to be made of X amount of sustainable materials. You've got to have them checked before an event. You've got to use this many boards across the year. That would then drive innovation in the companies, because all the stuff that keeps us safe in cars and all the stuff that makes our cars ecological is because it trickles down from motor racing, doesn't it? You were talking about that. We were talking about like these mass-produced boards earlier as well, which the pros don't tend to ride as much now. They tend to endorse them, but not ride them. And I was greatly amused, actually. Now, not that I was stalking you on social media or anything, Luke, over the last.
It doesn't sound like it.
I'm wondering if you might remember this one, right? You posted a picture of a board that you just made, as in, like, look, I'm proud of this thing, whoever's picking it up. And then someone came into the ensuing comments and out of the blue, just asked you for advice on how to set up their fins on a quad from a different sort of surfboard manufacturer to you.
Well, careful here. Do we need to cold gar it or reg bow in it, Tom?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, we can do that. So if you've listened to us, have you look? We basically come up with names that keep the trail nice and cold. So we had cold.
Yeah, I did hear those. Yeah.
All right. Well, for this maker board, let's go with something really unrecognizable then. So we'll go with how about cheese string?
Yeah,
would it perhaps be a bit fiery as well, by any chance, Tom?
It would be hot and fiery cheese, yeah, and the string might be very wiry too. But I think the trail is suitably cold, so it'll do.
No.
So anyway, this bloke he'd bought himself a cheese string.
How about cheese stringer?
Oh,
do they have stringers?
Well, we won't bother asking Luke. We'll keep Luke out of it for impartiality purposes.
Yeah.
Anyway, this pic of a freshly minted Luke board comes out, and the commenter says, hang on, yeah, I found it. Just the guy. Question, Luke. Bought a cheese string quad. Do you recommend 4 or twin, please?
Which,
can you? So
sorts.
What did you reply, Luke?
Ask cheese string.
You said what?
Fair enough.
Ask cheese string.
Yeah. Well.
I thought that wasn't rude. It was, it was polite, and got myself out of
absolutely
something that wasn't anything to do with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, clearly
moving on.
A subject on the edge. Well, we will move on. And I'd like to go back to where we mentioned Bo Young earlier. And in addition to Bo Young, you've worked with some interesting people over the years. Are there any that stand out in particular to you, Luke?
Well, all of them, to be honest, because no matter whether it be a glasser, a sander, or a shaper, everything, you're never going to know it all. And you watch someone do something and you think, why'd you do that? Why'd you do it that way? And when you find out, you think, oh my God, yeah. And you hadn't really thought of that, you know? But the main one, and you were hinting at it earlier on, Rob, the main one is Pat from Hawaii. Purely because I was standing there looking at this bloke, knowing what he has done for big wave surfing, as it were, for his career, you know. And it just, everything, when I stood in that shaping room with him, I was literally like burning holes in him. You know, everything that came out of his mouth, I was sort of analysing and thinking, you need to remember this. Because you ask my missus, it's not selective hearing. I just don't remember stuff. It just goes in and comes out unless I really, really need to know it. I could almost recite you conversations from stood next to that man, just because, you know, just the whole, those big boards, you know, and what some of these people are perfectly happy to take these big boards into and perform on. You know, the confidence that people had in that guy, you know, was like, right, okay, you need to listen to this bloke.
It was, of course, on a Rawson board that, like, one of the most intense turns in the history of surfing.
Yes, exactly. The
Tom Carroll's snap on the little
tiny swallowtail. Yeah, for sure.
Like in a part of the wave at Pipeline that I think to this day hardly anyone goes near to and gets back out of.
Exactly. Yeah. That I saw that board on in two pieces on the wall of it was the shop in one of the shops in Haleiwa. Actually on the wall there with his in a case with his helmet. Yeah. Amazing.
Because that same board, of course, in the heat before, this is going right back into the deep geekery here. He basically played a game of chicken with Derek Ho.
Really?
The pair of them going up into the lip together, looking at each other, and Ho chickened out, and Tom Carroll spun round and made a super late takeoff, and then pulled straight into squared off the bottom, stalled, pulled into the barrel, and came out and got a 10 for that as well. So the snap actually never got a 10, but it was one of the most intense late takeoffs you'll ever see earlier on as well. Yeah, they were basically trying to get out of the way of this wave, and Carroll spun round and went. So yeah, it shows you know how important the board that's under your feet is in doing that.
Like I said, confidence in the guy who's built it for you. You know, that's for sure. But no, everyone, like even like and like I could glass back along, but then I went and I worked in a factory in Bodmin, and I was under the wing of hands down one of the best laminators in the country, in the world. Sorry, Phil Northey, his name is. I hold him at like the utmost respect for Big Phil. We call him Big Phil because he's massive, you know, and I'm not. And he stood there and he said to me, "You can glass, can't you?" And I kind of went, "Well, yeah." And he went, "Forget it. It's my way or the highway," with this sort of stern face. And he's a big shaved bloke. And I was like, "Yeah, okay." But even so, like you watch him just, you know, cruise around these 6 trestles up, you know, all cloth cut and everything, and watch him go around. And the way he glasses now is you find little ways of doing it yourself. But do you know what? I reckon if you put Phil on one trestle and me on the other, I would still do. It would be a mirror image because he's left-handed, I'm right-handed.
Is that out of fear?
Yeah. No. Yeah, proper, a little bit, and a little bit of I wouldn't want to let him down because he's. But I still laminate the way Phil taught me to laminate, and because it just works, you know. But I remember once he said, right, we had a real rush job and we had to get all these boards out. And he said, right, you do the cutout, so I'm going to start glassing as you go down, like cutting the cloth out. And he started going, and he came at this, shouted this big expletive at me. I thought, oh my God, what have I done wrong? It's only a cutout, you know. But the nose, where you snip the cloth up at the nose to put the laps up on the nose, I'd cut it the right-handed man's way. So as he was going round, he was like, whoa, and he was sort of trying to stick the other lap up straight away. And I just didn't think about it. But yeah, that was sticking in my head, because that was a moment like, oh God, I've got that wrong. But he was fine. He laughed about it. But, and that was it. We did giggle. But that was all these little things that he knew how to do. And, because he'd done it just thousands and thousands and thousands of times before, But yeah, Big Phil, definitely. Yeah.
It's so interesting to hear about the kind of the unsung heroes of surfing, because they are the surf labor, the people that kind of make it happen but don't get any credit. And for my sins, I'd like to bring it back, Luke, if I can, to a little story that I've heard of through the grapevine about one of your boards ending up in the hands of Robbie Page, and through him under the feet of Tom Curran on one of the Riptide search trips to Russia.
Very tenuous. Yeah.
So, do you know where that board is now?
No idea. If that board is in one piece, I'll be very, very surprised. It was a long time ago. It was so long ago, in fact. It was before the let's say, using the term, it was before the retro revolution happened again. I was working in Surfing Life, a shop at the bottom end of town in Plymouth, and my boss, Fordy, he'd given me a porter cabin up where he lived to set up as a shaping room, because we could, I was doing the ding repairs for the shop and in there. And what we started to do is make some just sort of like cheap as we could mini mows with the shop logo on. So I was doing that, and then I had the idea. I said, Fordy, how about if I shaped a couple of twin fins or a couple of single fins and things, and put some sort of nice retro-y spray jobs on and sort of see how it goes. And he was like, yeah, if you reckon. So I did. I made a couple of twins and a couple of single fins, like really nice colours, and I made this one twinny, and it had white glass in fins. It was all white with a red deck with a pin line around the deck. And I was at work one day, and I knew it was all happening, but it was the time of the Quicksilver Crossing, and I think it was the silver edition or something, like the Masters, like Mark Richards and like Titus and Jeff Hackman and those boys were doing the trip around. I was in.
So the boat was parked up in Plymouth Harbour.
I believe that was that time. Yeah, definitely. If not, they'd just come round in like a minibus, as it were, But yeah, the Indies Trader at some point was parked up down the Barbican. Yeah, and I got a phone call from Fordy up in my first shaping room. Yeah. He said, Luke, you need to get down here quick. I was like, right, okay. He said, the boy's in here, and Robbie Page has got his hands on this twin fin, and he's just going bananas over it. He's just saying this is what he learned to surf on. This is him all over. He said, get down here because he wants to meet you. And I was like, wow, here we go. This is great. I was probably 19, something like that. So it was like really like, oh, I've got it. So I remember sort of switching off and like charging out and getting in the car. And as I got in the car, phone rang again. Fordy said, look, Luke, they're on a real tight schedule. They've got to go. Have you left yet? And I was like, no, I'm just outside. I'm just leaving. And he said, look, do yourself a favor, let him take it, and then just replace it. Just build another one, put it back in the shop. Just do yourself a favor. I said, yeah, okay. And I said, yeah, let him take it, no problem. So he did. Then I heard whispers of footage of him like crazy La Graviere, like solid, proper La Graviere of him on this twinny. I thought, I wonder if I could, back along then, there was no Facebook, no Instagram, so you couldn't, I don't know how I would have gotten to see all this stuff, but I did hear there was, he's been going nuts on it, and people are like, wow, Robbie Page is on a twin fin. Then I heard that, as the man himself, Mr. Curran, had come back through France and borrowed said twin fin. And I was also told then, off the back of that, Rip Curl did a Rip Curl search in Russia, of all places. And by all accounts, he was on it there. So, it's just that, but that surfboard sometimes, isn't it? Can I borrow that, mate? Can I borrow that? And off they go. But yeah, so no, I didn't actually shape for Robbie Page or Tom Curran, but apparently those hallowed feet have been on my creations. Yeah, good, huh?
That's epic. And from the sublime to the ridiculous. No. You've also had a few gigs making boards for like ad agencies, I heard that one time an ad agency rang you up and they just sort of said, can we have some surfboards, please? You were like, what type? And they said blue ones, red ones, pointy ones.
Yeah, that was
and then you just do
that was for that was madness. That was really weird. I was still spinning about that. That was for Ralph Lauren, actually.
Ralph Lauren.
Yeah, and they were just props.
On this show, we don't care about Ralph Lauren when we can talk about the Goldie Lookin Chain.
Yeah. yeah.
You've also shaped boards for the Goldie Lookin Chain.
Not exactly, no.
Or in fact, no, they were boards that you were gonna take somewhere, weren't you? And then like the boards got delayed because the GLC were doing
they need some boards. Can you meet up in Newquay? But and then I went up there with these boards, and I don't even know what they were doing. But yeah, I met the boys, and
you were a huge fan of Goldie Lookin Chain at the time, weren't you? You know, you knew loads of their lyrics off by heart.
Yeah. I thought I broke the ice.
You know the B-sides?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I broke the ice by asking Eggsy a couple of questions, and he was lapping it up. He loved it. Certain times, there's the sort of celebrity can kind of sort of be a bit sort of like, no, but he was just, when I asked him this question, he was all over it. You couldn't shut him up. He knew that I knew the GLC, and he was well happy with that. So that was a fun afternoon. Yeah.
Didn't you tell him that I'd told you to tell him that my nan could take his or something like that?
Yeah. And it was thrown back in my face because he then turned around and said, actually, my nan died last month, so she probably is harder than my nan. And I thought, God. But he said, no, it's all right. Yeah, it was all, it was like 1 second there. I was like, oh, God, thanks, Tom. But it's fine. No, it's all good. No, they're funny blokes. Yeah.
So, of course, your love of Goldie Lookin Chain then, of course, meant that Newport has always been like a kind of,
Mecca,
almost as important as the North Shore to you. So
that's Nirvana, isn't it?
Yeah. See John Frost Square.
And the culture roundabout.
Hence my mention of the Roman ruins.
Don't forget the Chartist, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, definitely. No, for sure.
More serious topic then again. From Wales over to Ireland. Quite a few of the boys charging Mullaghmore. Have been using your boards as well, haven't they? And particularly the South African Barry Motter's head.
Yeah.
What goes into making a board at that length? Because basically you've been making. Well, is it almost like when you make a board for a grommet that's 4 foot long and you've got to scale everything down? Is it just the complete reverse? You've suddenly got to make a board that's like 10
to a degree at face value, yes. But if you look at it the other way, you're going from turning up in your factory and making a surfboard for a bloke or a girl to go and have fun at the beach with. You're then going in there and making a surfboard, let's face it, that could potentially kill them. So it's 100% concentration. And if you're blasé about it, then wow, you've got more conkers than I have, But it's sweaty palms time. Yeah, for sure. But it is. No, the rockers are. I mean, like you said, you scale down a little tiny board for Grom. You've got to scale the rocker down. Obviously, it will stop. And also, from the other way around, you're right. You have to scale that rocker completely differently because for waves like that and some of the other places out there as well, like it's all about paddle speed. The only way these people are going to get into those waves is speed. And you've only got, they are just, these people are just, ultra fit mentally and physically, but they still have to paddle that board into these things, these walls of water that are coming at them at, whatever speed. Yeah.
And you hear about the kind of relationship between the shaper and the surfer. And I imagine shaping surfboards for these people that are kind of operating in such extreme environments, does that make the bond between shaper and surfer that much
absolutely Rob, 100%. Here's a funny thing. I've been shaping for Barry for I think we worked it out, it's about we'd worked out about 12, 13 or 14 years or something. I would class him as a good mate. We speak regularly-ish, we'll have every now and again we'll have a chat over some sort of platform like a WhatsApp or something. But do you know what? I've never actually met him. I've never shook his hand. No. But exactly that. We sit down and we have Skype on or whatever, and I'll have things going on my laptop, and I'll be diddling, drawing, and I'll be doing this, click, this, that, and the other. What do you think to this? What do you think to this? Or maybe do this. Because I've never been in the positions, and I never want to be in the positions that he puts himself in. That place is a different beast. I mean, even when the Hawaiians go over there, they agree it's a different beast. You know, not only the unperfectness of it, the cold, you know, and colder water is denser, you know, it's heavier, you know, it's just all these factors. So yeah, no, and I think probably because of that, because I'm needing him to literally stare me in the eye and tell me exactly what goes through his mind at the point of fight or flight, as it were, you know, or the pull back or the go, where they don't really have to pull back, they just go. But they can't be one, they and the other way around, he's then looking at me and he's saying, right, yeah, but when this happens, your board kind of does this. Is there any way we can sort of eliminate that, or is there any way we can accelerate out of that or something? And the same with the toe boards for him. You know, that's a completely different ball game as well. You know, that's making surfboards again, learning to shape again.
Speaking of making boards and mindsets for big waves, we mentioned earlier your work with Pat Rawson and how you lapped up everything that you watched him do. How did you actually come to work with him in the first place?
Right, I worked back along. When was that? I think it was 2004 to 2005. I worked in a factory in Bodmin. It was like a production factory. That's where I met Big Phil and Larry Loggins, the sander, and Nick Williams, the artist of just highest caliber. And a few of the boys came through there to, you know, because they were licensing, you know, doing boards under license, and Pat came through there, and he actually ended up staying with me and my wife. The kids weren't around then, obviously, but he stayed with me and Claire whilst he was here. So I took him around where I live, around the beaches and the cliffs and stuff, and so I got a bit more of an outline of Pat, rather than just sort of being in a shaping room and just everything. It was just really, really that. Even, you know, I am an eternal grom. You know, even, you know, if I met someone like that, even now, I'd still be, you know, I don't, you know, it's to me, because this is my job, and not just my job, I love it. You know, it is still always going to be like, wow, this and that. But yeah, he stayed with me for a while, and I'm still not sure really about it, but I'd shaped a board for one of my good mates, and I just whipped a bit of the tail up, and I just brought the rocker up a little bit, and he came in and he sort of had his nail in his teeth, and he's looking and staring down. I thought, here's where you get written off, you know, by a master. Here's where you get, like, you know, holes picked up. He said, why have you done that? Why have you just brought that there? I said, because, you know, you just get that little, you know, I can just get a little bit more. Bagsy's name. Bagsy can just get a little bit more, I don't know what it was, a little bit more power from the bottom turns and like that. And he went, yeah, I never thought of that before. Nice one. And he walked off. And I stood there for a minute. I thought, was he just being polite, or I don't know. But then that sort of sets in my head, you know, and I read, I think it was Al Merrick, actually, I read a thing many, many, many years ago. And he had said, like, you'll never know it all, because surfing is constantly evolving. The parts of the wave that people are utilizing is constantly evolving. So therefore the boards have to constantly evolve and stuff like that. So you're never going to know it all. And every board you shape, you will learn a bit more. And every person you stand next to who is shaping, you will learn a little bit more as well. And I 100% agree, because, like I said, everyone does it differently. And then as long as you end up with the same answer to the equation, then it doesn't really matter how you got there. But it's not, you know, you do pick up different things from watching different people do different stuff. And it was kind of odd and a bit like, wow, to have somebody of that caliber say, oh, wow, no way. Yeah, good one, and walk off. Like,
it's amazing to hear about and think about how many different things go into the equation, because it's like thumbprints or snowflakes or something. Like, so, you know, each time you make a board, it's like, what's the person like? What's their weight like? How do they surf? What kind of waves are they going to use it in? And then, you know, it's all pretty much never going to be the same.
No, even if, like, when the shaping machines came out, and you know, we can replicate this board and whatever, you're never going to get that same board. Like you said, the snowflakes and in thumbprints and that, you might have that board literally measured to the 32nd of an inch over everything, absolutely everything. It won't feel the same,
and something will be different.
Yeah, because there's three different pieces of wood down the middle of it from three different trees, probably, you know. The resin came out of a different barrel, hands down, would have come out of a different barrel than the barrel of resin that your previous one was made of. A different roll of cloth. Probably maybe a different glasser, possibly, who might be slightly more heavy-handed with his squeegee, or not as heavy-handed with his squeegee, and the sander then might have left more sand coat. Oh no, they are never ever the same. If you get that magic board, my personal view is, if that board is that magic, when it comes to the end of its useful life, hang it up and just remember, because I've tried. I've had 4 of the same board now for quite a while, and they're very, very, very similar. Very similar, off the same file. This one I've got under my feet at the moment, there's just something different about it. But yeah, that's just surfboards. They are their own entities, and that's how they should be. I
kind of put that to the test. Yeah. I picked up 3 dumpster divers of the exact same dimensions from the Channel Islands factory in Carpinteria in California, and all 3 of them surf differently, and it's bizarre.
Yeah, but it's good.
But like you say, actually, one of them was the magic board. It was my favorite board of all time, and it's hanging in my bathroom.
There you go. You've hung it up because it's magic rather than replicate. Exactly. Well done. That was my point. Exactly.
I've actually got one in the shed, and I've been wondering what to do with it. And off the back of your advice,
I'm going to hang it on the wall.
It's going on the wall.
Totally. Well, exactly. There's certain boards that if you sold them secondhand, you wouldn't get back financially what it means to you personally. Do you know what I mean? So
I've a confession to make live on Crest. I've never sold any of my own boards.
Wow.
I have,
really?
However, sold 2 of my dad's.
Yeah. Does he know?
He didn't know that one of them had sold. I was
so what happens to your boards?
They're just kind of in the loft.
Just giving away,
gathering dust. My first ever board I had shaped by a guy, used to be a teacher in Porthcawl Comp, John Berry. You might know of him, Tom. He's kind of our dad's era, surfing around Porthcawl. And he moved down to Hossegor, and he shaped out of Cap Breton for years and years, and I had my first ever custom board off him. And I know where it is, but it's no longer in my possession. Unfortunately, it's sitting in my mate's shed, kind of rotting, and I can't bring myself to go and get it. It's really sad.
Do it. Just go and get it. Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about travel, shall we? And you've been to the North Shore
a couple of times, yeah.
It's a place you love, and it's a place you like.
I do
return to.
I do.
Why?
I love it, and I would.
Why would you love a place like that?
I guess it's the rose tinted goggles, because everyone knows it could be a dark place for certain individuals. Just in awe of the place. I mean, you've never seen nothing like it. It's just I say the scale of everything. Everything on the North Shore is kind of small, smaller than you'd expect. Like Waimea Bay isn't very big. Waimea Church is really small, and then you look out to sea, and everything it's not very small. Just everything about it. I guess as well, if you add into it as well, like all of us, I've spent years and years and years of seeing it in magazines, seeing it on videos, and then all of a sudden you're breathing that kind of that polleny air, briny polleny air, and you're actually there, and you're like, right, okay, what have I done this time, sort of thing, But yeah, I am. Lots of people I'd worked with and knew had been there and had given me like lots of pointers and tips and things like that. One of them was obviously to get as fit as you could possibly be. But in that sentence was mentally and physically, because, I'm a 5'7" Englishman. There's no place for me, there's no place for me at all. So I ran, as much as I hate it, I ran as much as I could to get my cardio up. I would hold my breath whilst I was running, and I'd stare at a lamppost quite a way ahead, and I would run holding my breath until I got to that lamppost, because I'd worked out, I don't know if I read it or I'd concocted it myself, but I'd worked out and told myself that if I could get my brain to recognize the carbon dioxide kick in and be calm with it, you're never going to respire carbon dioxide. I get that. It's not about breathing carbon dioxide. It's not. It was about teaching my brain to not immediately panic. When the carbon dioxide comes in and you start wanting to breathe, to keep calm and just to get my brain to not panic as quick. Because I thought, if you just give yourself 5 more seconds, that's 5 more seconds, So I did that, and I ran loads, and I did that, this mind over matter and stuff like that. And honestly, that I've never, you hear people say that was the peak of my physical and mental fitness. It really, I felt as good as I possibly could be. But then you get off the plane, you drive up from Honolulu up to the North Shore. You always arrive there from LA at night time, so you see it in the lights. Then you go down the beach the next morning, and it's just like a kick in the teeth. It's like, oh wow, it's
And where was your favorite wave?
Do you know what? I went out there, like all of us. I went out there with like pipeline in my head. I got there, watched the first day we were there. We got up one morning, and it was kind of grey. It was overcast, and it was side shore, which it is a lot on the North Shore up there. Very wobbly, and I've never seen waves that big, that close up, because it is that close up, because obviously it's like it's a volcano going into the ocean. And as we walked up sort of from pipeline, sort of along, sort of off the wall up that way, crouched down out off the wall was Nathan Fletcher with a board on his lap against the wall. And I'm pretty damn sure, I'm going to throw it there and say, I'm pretty 99% sure it's Keikoa Bacalso sat with him. And they were just kind of like looking like, is it surfable, is it not? And I just, again, like just your blood just runs cold. Again, like my wife's going, wow, this is amazing. And I'm just going, oh God, what have I done here? But yeah, so my mind was that, but very, very quickly, it was just sunset. Like every day, let's go to sunset. I found a rhythm there. Don't get me wrong. I didn't, by any means surf it like big sunset, anything like that. But for an Englishman, I give it a good nudge for what I could. But yeah, sunsets stuck in there. You have to ride a big board there. That's no lie what you're seeing. Where as soon as it's 3-4 foot there, you need a big board. It's thick, it moves and everything. But I just had the best day surfing of my life was a Tuesday morning. The best morning surf of my life was a Tuesday morning there. Because pipeline, when I did go out of pipeline, it was small pipeline, because you think you're a bit of a nutter, and then you go to the North Shore and you realise you're small fry. When you do go out there, anything that comes in, what you are allowed to get is the scraps, is the rubbish. There's at any given day there is a lot, like you see lots and lots of people in there who are very, very, very good and very, very hungry for waves. So that's kind of straight away you're like, yeah, okay, fine, that's no problem. You get a couple of the scraps, and then you're done. But yeah, sunset for me.
Clearly, Hawaii's left a big mark on you, Luke. Are there any other places that really stand out in your mind?
Yeah, I had really, really, really good fun in Barbados. The guy who used to be my sander, I went out with him many years ago. It was just 100% fun. We got great waves, like what I call holiday waves. Nothing. You took a shortboard and you were covered. For everything that got. We surfed soup bowls with like 2 or 3 other sort of local boys. That really, really good fun and just super great. As like Bali, Bali in the bucket. That's just fun. Good waves there. But I will say, and I think Tom will agree with me, one of the best trips I went on was to the Outer Hebrides. And
I was there. What a trip!
Yeah. Just everything kind of fell into place.
I remember seeing the video of this trip as a Grom. Tom and Matt Hapgood sat me down and made me watch.
That's right. Yeah.
Maybe watch some little right-hander breaking into a harbour.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. We just got like linked up with a guy who's an absolute legend who lives up there, and like I said, everything fell into place. I've said this quite a lot this week, just about a few different things, but sometimes it's just your day, isn't it? And that was stars aligning. That was a great trip, really, really good trip. I didn't expect to get waves of that quality up there, and hearing that also come out of a guy from Western Australia who at the time was on the WQS, who agreed, who actually it came out of his mouth, not mine. That it was testament that that was a legit good trip. Yeah, good fun, real good fun.
Yeah, you're talking about the then WQS charger Jason Duffy, and he must have spent minutes in the tube at that right hand every surf, wasn't he?
The phrase I used, watching him, the way he took off, he would swoop into the barrel, wouldn't he? He would go from way, way, way behind it, and his arms would be behind his back as he dropped in. And as he slammed it all on the rail off the bottom, like the arms came forward, and like all of his body weight and his momentum went like all onto his front foot as he sort of come up like up into the face, and he would be way behind this thing, way behind, and numerous times you'd be paddling back out after getting what you thought was a really good one yourself, and there's just this barreling wave coming towards you, and you're like, oh yeah, and then he would just come flying out of the abyss into like a massive great air reverse, but kind of land the way you see people sort of buttering and popping on a snowboard. Do you know what I mean? He was like toying with how it would land in that, and then again to have him come say, honestly, boys, this is just, I didn't expect to get barrels like this. This is incredible. Was just like, right, you just tick the box. Yeah. But Duff showed us how it was done, didn't he? Bless him.
Yeah, definitely. He did. It was incredible, sir.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Jason Duffy landing his air reverses in a kind of a snowboarding manner.
Yeah.
And you yourself are a keen snowboarder and skater, aren't you, Luke?
Yes, skateboarding more than snowboarding. I love the snowboarding, but I live in the part of the UK where it snows the least. So that's it rains the most and snows the least. That's only sort of as and when I can. But I have one of my best mates, actually, he's an Australian fella, Reese, who now lives in Germany. And when I can, I'll hop over on a plane over to him, and we'll drive into the Alps in Austria and have a bit of a silly time for a few days burning around the Alps in Austria. And I like that. I really do. I love the fact that you get on a lift, and after spending so much time in the sea, and you sometimes you're sitting around there for ages, bobbing about. You have a chat, you have a nice social, but you get out and you don't really have a great deal to show for what you've been up to. But you go snowboarding, you get off that lift, and you do 50 turns. And then you get on that lift again, and then you do another 50 turns. And you can hone that turn because it's right there in front of you, and then you can hop off, which one of Reese's favorite things, he makes me follow him do, hop off the piste and go off backcountry. And then that then turns into another sport completely as well when you're in powder compared to being on a piste, so you are more surfing then, and it's great. Yeah. I do love my snowboarding, but that's, I'm a rookie to snowboarding. But skateboarding has been in my blood since I was, I think I was 5. I think I stepped on a skateboard when I was 5, and I haven't stepped off a skateboard since. I love my skateboard.
So another reason why we've got to stop this quickly here is because Rob Blythe is a part-time resident at Les Arcs, and if you let him start telling you his snowboard tales, you'll be here forever. We're in there. We're in the hole because we know, again, that international travel has been banned for at least a little while yet. So we're going to have to try and see if we can do something now, Luke, about all this stoke for travel and snowboarding and all this that you've just filled us up with, right? We've been running this Nightmare Surf Trips feature for a little while now, and it has proven...
Oh, hang on. Can I butt in there? I've just forgotten. When you said about travelling and so forth and trips, I've forgotten pretty much the major thing in my life.
Oh, yeah.
Australia. Where I met my wife.
Okay. Yeah.
Australia too. Yeah, I spent a long time.
You can now tell her it's okay to listen to this podcast.
Sorry, love. Yeah, Australia as well. Yeah, good times. Good times in Australia. Sorry, I butted in there.
Yeah, I've got to come in here now and be the Stoke Grinch because none of us are going travelling for a while.
It's all downhill
Rob,
from
take
now.
it away.
Yeah.
Come on, Rob. Get us out of this hole.
Okay, this week we've a submission from South Australia, a town called Marion Bay, to be precise. We've a few listeners in that part of the world, as it happens, and Wayne Edwards is of Welsh descent. In fact, he recently did a trip to Chirk Castle in Wrexham to see his ancestors' logs in a Doomsday Book. Now, that's dedicated Welshness. Now, Wayne is a pretty well-travelled individual, and that's putting it mildly. This gem goes back a few decades to some of the earlier days of surf travel, and it's a harrowing read, all right. It kind of has a happy ending, but we've allowed it past our senses anyway for reasons we'll discuss after the tale. Here we go. Now, this tale is set in 1978 when travel wasn't easy, and Wayne has titled it Alien Days. We travelled by cargo boat from Sibolga to Teluk Dalam on Nias. We boarded the boat, which was about to depart, but in fact left 2 days later. The locals call it Jam Karat, or rubber time. With a sigh of relief on the second day at midnight, the old diesel motor came to life, but was shortly drowned out by a clap of thunder so loud all aboard jumped at once. A tropical storm erupted, torrential rain hammering on the tarp above our overcrowded deck. Just when you thought it could get no worse, the rain shifted horizontal as we cleared the harbour to open seas, drenching us within seconds. I crawled into my old army disposal sleeping bag and spent all night being soaked on deck. Sunshine woke us, but I emerged shivering. Strange faces were pointing and laughing. I looked down and saw vomit all over my jacket, which was not amusing at all. I threw it overboard and the locals were fishing for it. They offered it back, but I politely refused. I then discovered that my hands, my legs, my arms, face, and hair were bright army disposal green. I guess that's like an Australian term for army surplus. Army
it must be, yeah.
So we finally arrived at Teluk Dalam and had to walk 12 kilometres to Lagundri village, our accommodation, which was a smouldering heap due to a tribal feud over a young lover. 3 Americans out surfing lost everything and had to leave, which left us the uncrowded break for 2 weeks. An Aussie and a Kiwi, peak season Nias, complete heaven. We walked up to the other rival village to find accommodation, but no one would come out of the long houses. The whole village was staring out through their windows. Don't forget I was still green, and they probably thought that I was an alien. We finally got a platform on the boat, the first lodgement yet to be built in Nias. It seems like yesterday, but that's Jam Karat, rubber tongue. There's a side story about the surfboard on this journey, which I was then forced to leave in storage in Penang for 10 years. Found again, then lost again near Gulls Rock, South Australia, then found again. I call it my boomerang board, and I still have it to this day, minus the stringer due to Asian white ants and the moth-eaten board bag. It still has a hole in the fin where I used to attach my handkerchief-held leg rope. I have other horror stories such as dehydration on Grajigan and the chicken killer of Savai'i, Western Samoa, but they can wait for another day. Oh, do. Now that's a tale of hardship for waves for sure, but what we really loved about that one was the way Wayne threw in those little additions at the end. How do you end up leaving your board in Penang for 10 years?
Well, to follow up to this, Luke, can you imagine that happening, leaving a board in Penang and getting it 10 years later?
Nah. Those people kept it there. They didn't sell it, or that's unreal. That is absolutely unbelievable.
They did. And I've actually, this one turned out to be, I phoned Wayne about this. And Wayne has agreed to give me a little interview for our next episode on this one. Awesome. Because there is quite a tale behind that surfboard. That actually, I think, turns out to be the bigger part of the tale. Have you ever come across one of your old boards somewhere really wild before, Luke? No,
not really wild. I mean, some of my friends have kind of nailed bits of their boards that they'd snapped in places that would be great advertising for me. But yeah, that's as close as nothing from further.
You did say to me once, I remember, that it's very rare that somebody takes a surfboard to landfill, isn't it? They do seem to have these lives, these mystery lives as decorations, ornaments.
Exactly. This is for sure. I used to teach the University of Plymouth when they had the surf science course. And because you've got, these sort of fresh young bucks coming through and stuff, the question you would get thrown at you regularly was, how do you go about the eco thing that's happening now?
Recycling.
This was the recycling, and sort of the noxious chemicals and disposal of it, all this and the other. Argument's the wrong word, but my the second part of my argument, I said, I do everything. I pay a lot of money to have all my waste disposed, and I have to have a certificate at the end of the year to say it's been disposed of legally by a proper contractor and everything like that. But I'd say to them, how many surfboards have you thrown away? And there'd always be silence. There'd be and I say, right, put it this way, right, let's say I handle at least 5 surfboards, day in, day out, every day of the week, every month. I've only ever taken 1 surfboard to landfill. That was because somebody bought me this board to copy. They said they wanted a copy of it. This thing I was just beaten beyond belief. And when it had been, hadn't been repaired for so long, and it'd been surfed and surfed and surfed, and the foam is gone. Like in the Swallowtails, the foam is like an inch back from the jagged fiberglass. It was just gone. It was like that. And it would never, ever, ever have been worth repairing. And he said, right, okay, no problem. When I come and pick the new one up, I'll come and pick that one up. When he picked the new one up, he was literally on his way to the beach. And he said, I'll come and get another time. And he never did. And it kicked down the factory, and it just wasn't, it just needed to go. So it went. Now, that's the only one. And like I said, I handle a lot of surfboards. It's the only one that's gone to landfill. And there's also nothing to say that someone had gone to take something to the dump. And as they got there, they saw that surfboard. What are you doing with that, mate? Take it. It's not a problem. Yeah. You tend to, like Rob said, his loft is full of them. Then they're not doing the environment any harm because they're in Rob's loft. You sell one on, Rob doesn't, but you sell a board on to a Grom. To you, that board's lost its pop, lost its spring. But a Grom who's just come off a mini mal or his dad's big board, whatever, he doesn't notice it. He rides that for a few. She rides that for a few years. And then like you said there, Tom, as you get when you go over the Anahulu Stream Bridge, like that famous white rainbow bridge into Haleiwa, there's a house on your left, and the fence is snap surfboards the whole way around. So therefore, they're not in landfill. They're being used for something. And now everyone, we have to be, but everybody's so sort of conscious of using what we can. They're being made into sort of pieces of art. Bars like to have them to line the ceilings of the walls. And that is a kind of, and then that story there. Is it Wayne? Is it? That's
Wayne.
When if that's not eco. Whoever ordered that board originally is a custom, whether it was Wayne or not, I don't know. But do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's never been in landfill. It's been looked after for 10 years.
The other bit I really loved about the mention of the Asian white ants eating the stringer of this beloved board of Wayne's.
You're putting back into the environment.
I was also wondering if those Asian white ants had maybe literally mistaken it for a cheese stringer.
Oh
dear. Oh dear.
Yeah, moving swiftly on with that.
As I said, I couldn't leave it at that, so I have phoned Wayne, and yet he's agreed to a little recorded interview, and he has elaborated plenty about this boomerang board. It's an absolute perler. That's going to get rolled up into what we plan to do for the next show. A Nightmare Surf story there, Luke?
No, I'm a bit like Rob. And like Rhino on your last podcast or you podcast, but I'm lucky for a start a lot of the time. I haven't really got anything really. I mean, maybe the start of the Hebrides trip that potentially could have been. Yeah. So when we left Ullapool there, on the ferry, we sort of trundled through the Inner Hebrides, didn't we? And it was like a lake, and then as it went past the last of the Inner Hebrides, it literally stepped off a very big cliff, didn't it? And like poof, when it's coming over the front, and and it was only, I think it was you, me, and Duff were left standing. I mean, everybody, pretty much the whole boat was just evacuating their digestive tract, weren't they? It was just horrendous. And I'd actually had. I think it might have been Steve at Carve rang me and said, like, what are you doing? Have you not looked at the charts? There's not going to be any surf, this and the other. And then when this was going on, he rang back and he'd obviously looked at a different chart and said, do you need a photographer? And I was like, no, it's all good. We had one. We had Mark Lumsden, didn't we? Rest in peace, Mark. But that potentially could have been flat, but it really, really wasn't. But the seasickness amongst the boys was horrendous. Yeah.
Oh, my abiding memory of that boat trip was the sight of poor Tristan Jenkin just lying on the floor. So
he was across the seats, wasn't he, with his head over the bin?
The seats, that's it. And he had he had no spew left in his body to leave his body, but still his body was spewing. And every time he looked up, there was a camera in his face filming him.
Yeah, lucky boy. Yeah,
very empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
What a friend sport, and thank you very much again, Luke, for that tale. And we're going to add Wayne Edwards' story and yours, Luke, to the grand final we're going to hold, which is going to be the contents of our next show. A massive thanks for coming on Crest, Luke.
No, thank you. It was good.
I think it was Tris Cokes of the legendary label Tris Surfboards, wasn't it, who once described Luke as someone who just lets his work do the talking. Well, I got to say, it's been quite nice today to have heard your talking, do some of the talking too, Luke. And you're pretty good at it, I have to say, so thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, Tris did say that to me. That was very humbling from a person of his stature. Yeah.
And we'll be hearing a little reminder of that tale from Luke on the next show as well. Some of the highlights from Rhino's many horror stories, even though he wasn't aware of it at the time that they happened to him, and those of Harry Cromwell, Emily Williams, and Andy Martin. And Tom's going to explain a little more to finish.
Yeah, so this idea germinated really when Robbo and me were knocking around content for the first show, and we thought, hey, let's talk about how bad surf trips could be, since nobody can go on them at the moment because of this horrible coronavirus crisis. And from there, a lot of people started sharing their worst haps from a range of trips. I think it must be like a way of releasing the horror of it. Perhaps maybe they're absolving themselves by getting these tales off their chest, but the tales did come thick and fast. So what we're going to do next is welcome a third guest presenter to Crest for the next episode to help us work through the stories we got and to sort of celebrate how bad travel can actually be.
Indeed. And our guest presenter next week is fresh off a cancelled round-the-world trip himself. Elliot Dudley will be joining us in our virtual studio.
Yeah, as I said the first time, my heart absolutely bled for him when I realised that there was going to be an end to his smug, dreamy Instagram pictures. And so anyway, now we've invited him on Crest so that we can question him some more about that horrible experience of getting forcibly repatriated during a pandemic. We've also found someone who was in that group of UK nationals locked down in Peru and flown back. He had to sit and look at Chicama Break empty for a month. And we're going to go back over all the listener and guest ones to date, as Rob just said, as well as a few more. We're devising a criteria, and we're going to give out some awards. The Eurovision Trip Gone Wrong contest, I suppose, of lost stoke, injury, penury, and rotten luck. It's going to be a blast, and you'll get to hear more about Wayne Edwards' boomerang board too. And there is quite a side tale, as I have promised you. If you've got something you want to send us, please do at castcrest@gmail.com. And also don't forget you can subscribe to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, as well as on YouTube, where you'll be able to see the growing number of neon tiles which denote our backlist of episodes to date. We're looking forward to the next one. And besides Luke, of course, can we say a big thank you to you, the listener. Diolch am gwrando a gwelwch chi tro nesa.
Bye.